Well, hello, good people. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Boo Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. I hope everybody's having a great day, and welcome, welcome.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Isn't this why you are not here? Oh my God. It is getting crazy out here as we know that Jerry Jones has no plans. Let's be clear here. Jerry Jones has zero plans. He's making this shit up on the fly, and as he puts it, deadlines make deals get done, but we're not in a hurry to get any done. And we are sitting here thinking, yet here's the problem with us Cowboy fans as a base, is we overvalue ourselves. We think that we're better than everybody else, okay? That we have standards that are higher than anybody else, and this, that, and the other is not acceptable. I don't care what other teams do. We're the Cowboys, and we are a storied franchise. People, let that shit go. That means nothing today. It means nothing today. B.A.M was the biggest company a long time ago. What happened to it? Earl's TV, VCR, Laserdisc, they were the biggest at one time. They are no longer relevant. The Dallas Cowboys are no longer relevant as far as winning goes. And with that is the same thing with this job. Jerry Jones thinks, well, they're just going to pound down the door to be the coach of the Cowboys because we're them boys. We're worth $10 billion plus. We got 5 Super Bowl rings. But as Jackson said, what have you done for me lately? And I think we overvalue what we are. I'm sitting here listening to, Rich Eisen and guys. Well, this is one of the most coveted jobs. Is it? Is it really? If I am an up-and-coming coach that believes I have a chance for greatness, and let's be clear here, as a coach, being a Super Bowl winning coach is greatness. You have to scratch that off your list, because what you want to do and how you want to do it is secondary to the Jones stirring shit up. In my mind, at least. Because I look at this and say, this is a company that the building's on fire. When we play a game, whether we win or lose, Jerry and Stephen Jones are going to be out there on Front Street saying what happened. Not me, not the guy who's the coach, not the guy who's calling the X's and O's, not the guy who is working and getting the most out of these players. Jerry and Stephen Jones are going to be out on Front Street every opportunity they get. They will undermine me and my authority. So why would I want to come to the Dallas Cowboys? Unless I'm desperate. That's why Dion is like, I'm good here in Colorado. I got full control. I'm treated like a god and with respect. The people love me. I got a chance to win a championship. I'm building something, and they're supporting me. Scratch all those things off the list. You're coming to Dallas. You get literally, before the offseason even starts, when they actually have money, things are going to be tight. It's going to be real difficult because we got to take care of players who are no longer here. You mean because you fucked up the contract, you overvalue the people because you screwed the pooch? That I have to do without because of your failures, and you don't learn from them? Yeah, that's where I want to go. That's where I want to go. I worked for a company for a while. Their whole thing was, we want to take the jobs that nobody else wants. Because We want to be a solution-based company. I'm like, do you realize how difficult that shit is? Why nobody else wants it? Because they ain't making no money off of it. You're probably going to lose your ass, and there's no answer for it. There's the job description for the Dallas Cowboys. That's it. That's the job description for the Dallas Cowboys. You're going to have to make do with less because they're not going to let you get what you really need. You're going to bring in Zeke instead of bringing in you're going to be having Zeke instead of a Derrick Henry. That's the reality of it. We can't afford $8 million for a running back that can be a difference maker. We're just going to draft to replace our players. That's what you have. Now, you may think, being out in Front Street and having the publicity and everything else, being the coach, who would you rather be right now? Would you rather be Mike McCarthy, who's literally been through the ringer, that literally for a year it's been coaching watches and everybody's telling you you're not coming back, and the Joneses saying I'm pissed off about the loss of Green Bay, or Sean McVay? How about, would you rather be going to Dallas to be the head coach, or like Dan Quinn going to Washington to a franchise that hasn't won in forever, where you got nowhere to go but up? And you got an organization that's actually supporting you, who is allowing you to create the vision that you have. Dan Quinn, right now, he can walk on water. He can literally walk on water. He is the greatest thing right now in Washington behind Joe Gibbs in 1 year. In 1 year. Do you think that will ever happen to any coach? Because here's the saddest part about this is, when I look at the 30 years body of work of the Joneses being in charge, because they're the constant. They're the one who's picking the head coach and all the other coaches. You're not even allowed to pick the guys you want. You can suggest it, and maybe they'll listen, but you can't even pick out the coaches you want. Most of the people that were coaching here were here when Mike McCarthy got here. Do you want to come here to build your resume or end your career? The saddest part about this whole thing is Mike McCarthy had 3 winning seasons. Not just winning seasons. 12 win seasons in a row. And I'm sitting here listening to people who are talking about, let's bring back Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett had 3 years of 8-8 in a row. And they did a hell of a lot more to help Jason Garrett succeed than we did with Mike McCarthy. We drafted better under Jason Garrett than we have with Mike McCarthy. In the time that Mike McCarthy has been here, how many players do you look at and say they're great? Okay. You can say Diggs, although he missed a season and a half, was not the same. You can say Micah Parsons, Tyler Smith, and CeeDee Lamb. That's it. That's it. 4 players. You got 4 great players that you've drafted here in the time of the 5 years that Mike McCarthy's been here. I can look back and say during Jason Garrett's time, well, they got Dak, they got Zeke, they got Tyron Smith, Travis Frederick, Zach Martin. They got Sean Lee. You can go through and you can find a lot of great players that they drafted during that time that you had Jason Garrett. Not so much now. Not at all. Not even close. Be that as it may. I'm not the only one who seems to feel that way, because Troy Aikman last night
When this news comes out, you know this is going to land in your lap, right? When we were in Dallas this year for a couple of games, look, the topic has always been out there about Jerry and Mike and what might happen, and now they've chosen to go in their separate ways. I don't think Mike will be out of a job for too long, but this job's as coveted as any because you're going to run the Dallas Cowboys. In what direction do you think they ought to look?
Well, I thought Mike McCarthy would be the head coach, so this is a bit of a surprise for me today that he's not going to be. And what went into those conversations that Schefter talked about, I'm not exactly sure, but it suggests that there's not a real plan. I mean, and the fact that they haven't had the opportunity to maybe interview a Ben Johnson and some of these others, Aaron Glenn. I think that what Schefter said as far as Kellen Moore being a candidate, that seems logical to me. A guy who has familiarity with the building. He's worked obviously with the Cowboys and with Jerry Jones, and they know each other very well. In fact, when Mike McCarthy got the job, it was told to Mike that Kellen Moore would be the offensive coordinator. So that's how much the Jones family thinks of him. Beyond that.
So think about that. I just want you to think about that for a second. You're hired as a head coach. Hey, congratulations, you're the head coach. Oh, here's your offensive coordinator. Here's your offensive coordinator. What? How are you are you head coach in name only?
It's hard to imagine. As far as a coveted job, I don't know that that's accurate. I mean, really? I do think the Cowboys are obviously a high-profile team. Whoever is covering or whoever is head coach of that team is certainly going to draw a lot of attention. But I think most football people that take over as a head coach, they want to do it on their terms.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's hard to do. And it's, if you take a Dan Campbell, for instance, is Dan Campbell if he's with the Dallas Cowboys? It's hard to imagine that he is. It's hard to imagine that a lot of these coaches might be. So I love the Dallas Cowboys. I played there for 12 years. I wish them well. But to say that it's a coveted job, I'm not sure I would necessarily agree with that.
Maybe it's semantics. And let me just be clear. I agree with what you're saying because, Swag, you look at that job and it's the star and it's Dallas and it's all that comes with it. But you're also hamstrung to a degree by the money you've got sunk in a couple of star players and that you're going to have to pay Mike if you want to keep him. How do you view what that job is?
I agree with Troy. Therein lies, there's a difference in flash and substance.
Cake and icing.
Flash.
Cake and icing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something we talk about this quite often when we get a chance to sit together and talk. But ultimately, when you look at this job, and I kind of sum this job up in this regard. If the owner is not going to change, are you willing to hire a coach with enough cachet to challenge you on not changing? And it's what's going to be best for the locker room and the guys that's playing on the field. We throw this word distractions around a lot in football. Things are happening and there's a lot of distractions going on. Distractions are a part of playing in the NFL. That's not singular to any team in the league as far as having distractions. The difference is in Dallas is the guy that makes the decisions creates the distractions. And that is why it's so difficult and why I agree with Troy to say this is a coveted job. You'll take the job because they'll pay you $5-6 million. We human. We understand that. But if you have a plan long term to win, implement a culture, change the way things are being done, that's something you really have to think about as a coach that's taking this job seriously, knowing that you play it on the margins anyway.
RC, to these points that are being made, because they carry a lot of weight and they make a lot of sense, could that preclude them from getting ultimately a difference-making type of coach?
Well, I do believe it makes it very difficult to get someone who is going to be a culture changer because that's what normally happens with these teams. When you move on from coaches, you want the culture to be better. You want the chemistry within the locker room to be better, along with the actual X's and O's and the strategic parts of football. That culture is Jerry Jones' culture. So many times when Mike Tomlin comes in and takes over for Coach Cowher in the Pittsburgh Steelers, where the culture was already great, he added his touch to it and he had to make it his own. There is no making the Dallas Cowboys your own as a head coach. It's how do you fall in line and compromise with Jerry Jones being the owner? And to Troy's point, it's a coveted job because it's one of 32. People want to be head coaches in the NFL, and you will have the spotlight and attention on you, but the attention is squarely focused on the general manager and owner most times, and it makes it very difficult to operate in a football-like way.
Jason, they were a rival. We understand. And in the NFC East, everyone's rivals with everyone, which is why I've always loved it. But looking at them from the outside looking in, how did you view with their circumstance as it related to Jones and the coach and whatever that was?
I mean, listen, they always had success. I mean, we fought each other hard. It wasn't like we dominated that matchup.
Yeah.
I think we actually lost more of them to the Dallas Cowboys, even though organizationally we have more success. And I do think that Jerry, the way the organization is run, it just feels like that's more the issue than it is the coaching. It feels like, especially this offseason, they didn't make the investment in the free agency. They didn't make the moves necessary to really compete. And all of a sudden now McCarthy is kind of being phased out. But I also wonder, what's happened, because it felt like McCarthy was trending towards being back. That's what it certainly sounded like.
I mean,
so what has happened?
He thought he would.
So what has happened?
And he had support from guys like Parsons that were pretty vocal about it.
So what has happened recently?
I don't know.
Did something happen in those meetings, or does Jerry have a plan that he already knows where he wants to go? Because it feels like you already got this guy coming back. It felt like it was trending there, and all of a sudden it's changed.
I don't think they would have spent the 4 days if there was not a thought that he was going to continue. There was something in those conversations. I've been led to believe that potentially it could have been the length of a contract. Never got into the actual terms of what the money would be, but if the contract was going to be a 2-year deal versus a 5-year deal, was that a no-go for Mike McCarthy, or where does it start? I don't know, but somewhere along the lines, what looked to be a conversation that was going to secure Mike for a deal didn't happen.
And it seems like when it comes to players, Jerry always waits to the last minute. In this case, I guess you got to the last minute. It was supposed to be Tuesday, and it didn't, and now it's not. So he goes in a different direction.
I think coaching matters in the NFL. I think we would all agree. I think coaching matters, players matter.
See it tonight.
You have to have both, but just bringing in someone, no matter how qualified that coach might be. And I'll reiterate, I think Mike McCarthy is an outstanding football coach. He's proven that in this league, the number of times he's won 10 games or more as a head coach. But you have to empower that head coach.
Yes.
And I think
the Cowboys
that's been what has been missing in Dallas since Jimmy Johnson walked out the door.
Without a doubt. That's what's missing. And that's the problem of being the coach of the Cowboys. Yeah. And this is where, I'm hearing people talking about Ron Rivera. Let's get Riverboat Ron. Guys, bum in Washington. Cliff Kingsbury, failure in Arizona. Kellen Moore, I'm going to say not vocal enough and not enough experience for me. Not. And going to be a lapdog to the Joneses. Jason Garrett 2.0. Urban Meyer, complete failure in Jacksonville. John Gruden, he won a Super Bowl with a team that was built by somebody else. When it came to actually building a team, complete failure with the Raiders. Completely. And when Tampa Bay got old, he couldn't rebuild them. Brian Flores, I might be able to get on board with the Brian Flores. He could relate to today's players. But I think he will bump heads with the Joneses. The Joneses will be one that'll be like, nah, bro, that ain't happening. And so as you look at this, the Cowboys may be in worse shape. Deion Sanders, I'm okay without you. I got a career. I got people who love me that work with me. Bill Belichick, maybe you can bring him back, but how long a solution is Bill Belichick? Bill Belichick is not exactly a spring chicken. Rex Ryan, oh, God. Hasn't coached in forever, and he's basically a 500 coach. Now, all these guys will bring drama and dysfunction, but I don't see where some people say Aaron Glenn may be interested in it, but the Cowboys, since they have no plan, they can't even talk to any of these other guys until they're out of the playoffs. And potentially, maybe they do have a target of one of these guys. But you may not be able to talk to them until the middle of February. And understand, you have no coaching staff right now. Unless you're going to say, Mike Zimmer, that maybe we're going to hire Mike Zimmer. That wouldn't surprise me if Mike Zimmer was elevated to head coach, because that's a guy they know, and we can keep him and the defensive staff together, and we'll find a new offensive coordinator. That actually might make more sense than anything else. Because literally, if you're waiting and waiting and waiting, you're going to have to build a staff, build a philosophy, and figure out who's going to be here, because free agency is 2 months away. 2 months away. The Cowboys have really screwed the pooch this time. Peace out.